Rise Higher Education, and today I'm in conversation with Sakshi, one of our alumni who is currently pursuing her master's from Johns Hopkins University.
I did my undergrad in psychology, and right now I'm doing my master's in clinical mental health counseling from Johns Hopkins University. Yeah,
Okay, so would you like to walk us through your application process for the university?
I think I started with like researching what field I want to do my master's in. I was a little confused on what courses or what programs to sign up for. And then once I did shortlist or like chose like a particular field, then I started researching colleges and universities, and that's where Rise Higher Education helped me in forming a list, like with ranking and with all the details like the preferences and the university ranking and everything. And that's how I sorted out what colleges and what universities I wanted to apply to.
And
Uh,
why particularly Johns Hopkins University?
uh, it was due to a lot of reasons. Johns Hopkins is one of the best universities for clinical courses, and apart from that, I think it wasn't as expensive as the other universities too. I think accredited by the licensing of Counseling Association. So that's why I ended up choosing Johns Hopkins.
Okay, so Sakshi, what motivated you to pursue a master's in clinical mental health counseling?
I knew like after my undergrad in psychology, I wanted to pursue a master's. I wasn't too sure like where to pursue it and which course to pursue it in. So when I looked into colleges in India, I wasn't very satisfied with the curriculum, and I wanted to have like a broad experience. So I ended up choosing like in deciding like to apply to UK and to US. When I looked through all the university rankings and everything, US was very leading. So I ended up choosing like a lot of like different US universities to apply for like a master's in clinical mental health counseling. So yeah.
Okay, so I have heard from a lot of people that psychology is a tough cookie and it's like very demanding and competing. So, how has your psychology journey been till now?
I think it's been a lot of ups and downs. It's just sometimes confusing because it isn't like maths or physics that there's one specific answer to it. It's different for all the people. There's no right and wrong in psychology. So it's been quite a journey. And in India, you face a lot of stigma, and there are a lot of things that you have to go beyond, and you have to fight through to pursue a career in such non-conventional fields. So yeah, it's been a good ride so far.
And particularly in US, how is it helping? How studying at Johns Hopkins University helping you in your master's in psychology, mental health?
I think there's a totally different approach to mental health in US, especially in Johns Hopkins. Everybody is so much aware of like what mental health actually is and what mental health services are and how can one, utilize those services. There's less of stigma and more sort of awareness, but at the same time, it's quite an individualistic society. There's not a lot of like deep social connections or so, uh, as far as I have seen. But in India, like at least from the place I have grew up from, I have like huge social groups, and I have like really good connections with people of all sorts of age and people of all sorts of backgrounds. So it's been like a different journey, but yeah, in US definitely the professors have been really helping, and there's just like a lot of open conversations and really provoking conversations we have around mental health and the services and the techniques that we provide.
Okay, so if we could ask you to state a difference between Indian education system and US education system, especially in psychology, what would it be?
I think the biggest difference that I saw was like the dynamic professor and a student. In India, I remember like in undergrad, I was like extremely terrified of my professor, and there used to be like a constant fear of asking questions or asking doubts, and if it's like a worth it doubt or not. But in US, at least, like for me, it the professors have been great. They have always encouraged us to like speak up and to communicate and to share our experiences. So this the power dynamic is like really healthy between professor and students in US. So yeah.
Okay, and how is your experience like as an international student? How are you adjusting to the culture shock and everything about being an international student?
Uh, Honestly, first semester was like extremely tough. Fall semester, I wasn't doing great at all. I had like plans of coming back wholly because I wasn't able to adjust at all. But because life as an international student, especially during COVID, I just moved after COVID. So during COVID, I was with my family and we were constantly together, and I was with my good family friends also. So it was very tough to live alone, to start a life alone, and yeah, I think a lot of cultural shocks as well. Like it felt like it was very difficult to form relationships and bonds over there. But there are other restrictions too. As an international student, you cannot work off campus. You cannot work for more than 20 hours. So a sort of like a financial burden as well. But I think gradually, once you start to figure out things on your own, you start to like form your own sort of network whom you can rely on. That really helped, and it's been good so far.
Okay, so have you had any opportunity to engage in any practical experiences or internships or part-time jobs related to your field?
I After my undergrad, I did pursue a couple of internships. One of the internships was at a psychiatric hospital where I got to like interact with patients of different psychological disorders and distresses. I also took part in like therapy planning and using of different sorts of techniques like intakes. So yeah, these are the experiences that I got where
Okay.
I used my hands-on skills. So yeah.
Okay, and how has these experiences or your coursework as well prepared you for working with diverse populations and addressing various mental health issues?
I had a course diversity last semester uh, in my master's program, and apart from that, just having like the opportunity to interact with people of different backgrounds and different like worldviews has helped a lot in like broadening your point of view and like accepting different sorts of approaches and different sorts of thoughts to everything. So I think that has prepared well. Having an hands-on experience and a clinical experience has definitely gave a more real sense of how the practice works, because it's very different in how theory or textbook says, but it's very different to apply it in person and on ground. So yeah, it's been an experience.
So, have you faced any challenges regarding your studies in masters?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I wasn't very familiar with using a lot of like uh, technology for my studies, so that was very different when I had just joined Johns Hopkins. Apart from that, having small classes and being like you have to speak and you have to share and you have to be vulnerable, which was quite different for me. Other challenges were obviously like I was extremely homesick and a lot of different personal struggles that I faced through during my few initial months or so. Being an international student was also like a challenge because you see other people having part-time jobs and you have just a limited number of jobs that you can apply to. So that has been to, I think language barrier is one of the greatest barrier an international student faces, because you tend to have like conversations where you try to mix up like Hindi or your native language and then English also. So it was quite difficult to like wholly communicate when to a person who only understands English. So yeah, but
I
apart from
think
that, I think
accent would be another problem as well.
definitely. I think for the first initial few classes, I couldn't understand what one of my professors said, and I had to ask the professor like, "Can you please slow down for me?" And it was a little embarrassing to ask, though. But I think the environment created around was like very supportive and very understanding of why it would be difficult to like understand an accent. So yeah.
So, have you had any chance or opportunity to collaborate with other professionals or researchers in the field of psychology? Like, if you
Uh,
have had, then what are some valuable insights or lessons I would say that you gain from these collaborations?
Not since I've joined the master's program, I have been able to collaborate. But I look forward to doing that. I am constantly in touch with my professors to get on board with their research team also, or like to get an internship at a hospital or at a clinic or so. So hopefully I'll get that soon.
What are the services provided by the university in these areas, like placements or research opportunities?
For Johns Hopkins, there's like a separate portal for applying to the on-campus jobs, and that is quite like streamlined and it makes the process quite easier. Apart from that, if you have to apply to a research position or so, you end up mailing the professors or the staff working in a research team personally, asking for sharing your interest and enthusiasm in it. But I think I got my job mostly because I applied through the university portal for on-campus jobs, and then I wrote quite a follow-up emails and like a thank you letter and everything. That's what got me the part-time job.
Okay. So Sakshi, how do you plan to address the stigma surrounding mental health in your future career?
I think the first step is to like have conversations, uh, especially I think given in Indian context, I think just to hear what people feel about mental health and how their misconceptions can be changed is the first step. So listening and then having conversations and breaking all the misconceptions is the first step to uh, destigmatizing mental health. Apart from that, uh, proving the legitimacy of the field and of the mental health concerns and how not to ignore mental health concerns, I think would be few of the initial steps.
Okay, so what is the difference that you have noticed for mental health awareness between the Indians and the US citizens?
Uh, like I said, like stigma first
Okay, so
thing.
is there anything that you want to give light onto?
Yeah, sure. I think except for stigma, there's also like there are not a lot of mental health professionals in India and not a lot of services. Like the ratio is quite like skewed in India, but in US, there's a lot of mental health professionals and there's a lot of job opportunities and a good job prospects for mental health professionals. So a lot of people do want to take up that field, but in India, that but due to like structural and due to systemic barriers, it's quite difficult. Apart from that, India being like a developing country, we have a lot of people who come from a rural background or so. So having mental health services in native languages, in like local languages, is very important. But when you are taught psychology or mental health in English, you tend to give services in English itself, which is not very accessible to people of all the areas. So yeah.
Yes. Then how, this is very, I would like to ask you this. How do you prioritize self-care and well-being while studying mental health, like considering the emotionally demanding nature of this field?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think I highly prioritize having like good social group and good sense of support. I have like during my tough times, I have had my family with me all the time. Except for that, I've had friends. I also took therapy in my first semester, so that has also helped me. Apart from that, I journal every day, so that really helps me in to be in touch with my emotions and to be in touch with my thoughts. So that really helps in like just being grounded. So yeah.
Okay, and are there any particular areas of psychology or mental health that you are particularly passionate about, and how do you plan to specialize in those areas during your studies or in near future?
I really want to work with people of background, especially women from different background. Except for that, I also want to work with older population because I feel like their mental health is quite taken for granted. Like older people are uh, with aging, people just take it for granted that sadness comes with it, but that shouldn't be the case. And yeah, so to get experience in both of these sections of society, I think taking up internships or volunteering is the only way I could go for forward. So yeah, I hopefully I get that.
Okay, and can you share any example of a particularly rewarding experience or a success story from your work or experience or studies as a student?
I think recently when I gave a lecture on study career in psychology, I did not expect like a lot of people would turn up, but there were a lot of people attending it, and people had a lot of like mm, queries and questions and enthusiasm and curiosity about the field. And a lot of people did approach me after the session, and that was quite rewarding that people do have an interest in pursuing a career in psychology. So, yeah.
Okay. So, Sakshi, we all know that mental health today is the topmost priority that should be taken care of and the one which is being neglected the most. So, I would like to ask you what strategies have you learned and you recommend for effectively communicating with and supporting individuals who may be experiencing a mental health issue, and what are some practices that an individual should do for taking care of their own mental health?
Yeah. So for the first part of the question, people who are suffering from any mental health issues or distresses, I think listening or just being there with them is the biggest and the first part to support them. So being a listener, being an empathetic listener, and validating their emotions, because we do tend to have this approach or instinct to whenever somebody shares or like their difficult emotions, we tend to like trivialize it, like, oh, it's not a big deal, you don't have to overreact, or you don't have to like be bothered about it so much. So if not doing that, instead of just validating their experiences and being there for them, being able to listen to them is the first step to support them, except for them encouraging them to go to therapy if the concerns are really extreme and if they want to work on it. So I think encouraging them to go to therapy or like even helping them out scheduling therapy appointments or so can really help them, because when you are in an suffering from a mental health issue or like mental distress or so, it's very tough to like taking proactive steps or to find a solution or so. It's just like everything is very draining and very energy consuming. So like helping them out and like all these little tasks really help with to support people who have mental health issues. And the second part of the question, like what can you do to keep your mental health intact? I think mental health comes from a very like biopsychosocial model where you work on your biology, your social environment, and your psychological well-being. So like having good diet or so, or having like good exercise or so really helps. Except for that, socially having, I personally believe that even though we are right now in the world where mental health is very where we are constantly on devices and don't have a lot of people around with us, but having like true few, at least few connections which you can rely on is really important. Except for that, psychologically, if you being in touch with your emotions and being able to like accept those emotions really helps you just like understand your thoughts and your emotions a little better than just like not invalidating it or like ignoring it at all. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. Is there any additional advice to sum this interview up that you would like to give to the students who are considering pursuing their master's degree in mental health counseling in the US?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to work on yourself, uh, a lot of different like the majority information you get on the internet is about uh people pursuing masters in engineering or an MBA abroad. So you'll have to do your own set of research, your own set of like you have to put in a lot of efforts to figure out what universities or what courses you want to take up. You'll have to talk to a lot of people as well. So it would be wholly your job, and I don't think like you would get like a good set of like universities just at your hand, because there's not a lot of people who want to take up a master's in mental health field. So that's one thing. Apart from that, working on your CV, just except for your academic courses, you'll have to do a lot of like different things, uh like internships or working in research or volunteering. Like do everything to make your CV strong. That would be my other piece of suggestion. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. That's it for today's interview. Thank you for joining us and helping our students in so many ways and so many questions.